Hello again. My name is Jeff Tehan. I'm a quality engineer on the Red Hat CloudForms product. Today I'll be continuing with my video series on integrating the ManageIQ 5.6 with the Azure portal. We'll be covering the new features of the Red Hat Enterprise Linux 6.7 and 7.2 that are now available as templates on the Azure Marketplace site. So let's just jump right in. I'm going to show you how to create it, how to edit it, and how to connect to it. So thank you very much. The first thing I want to show you is that I've been using Red Hat 7.2 on Azure for some time now. What I have here is a virtual machine that has the latest CloudForms 5.5.2 image on it. It's running. It has an IP address, and it also has a DNS setting here, and I'll show you how to set that up when we configure the RHEL 7.2 image. What I'm going to do is connect to the portal. I'm going to use the DNS instead of the IP address. The thing about the IP address is they are dynamic, and if you leave the machine off for a while and restart it, you may and probably will end up with a new IP address. But if you set a DNS, then that's always going to be valid regardless of what the IP address is. So consider that when you're configuring your system. And then I just want to show you a likely unrealistic scenario, but one I found interesting. I'm actually running CloudForms on Azure, and I'm using it to manage my Amazon AWS account. I've actually added Amazon as a provider in here, and as you can see, I have tons of VMs I can choose. Alright, so we're going to go back, and then with the IP address you can also connect directly using SSH to the appliance, or in my case I use PuTTY for this Windows demo. But you simply connect to it, and then it's whatever password you set when you configured your system. I'm just using the default stuff. And that's basically how you connect using SSH, the same way you would if it was an internal machine. So I have 3 VMs right now, and I want to do some power state transitions at the end from CloudForms. So I'm going to turn one of these off so I can turn it back on later. To create the Red Hat virtual machine, you want to go create a new object, and I'm just going to choose See All here. We want a compute resource, and I'm just going to search for Red Hat, and there's Red Hat Enterprise Linux 7.2. So I'm going to select this image. CloudForms supports the Resource Manager mode, so I'm going to create this in the Resource Manager interface. I'll give it a simple name so we can identify it. Now pay attention to the username here. It cannot be root. Root is built in to the images by default, and it's basically not accessible unless you do some custom configuration. And then you need a password. It needs to be a valid password, usually 8 characters with special characters, etc. And then the VM size, they always recommend more than I need, especially for demos, so I'm going to go find something cheap here. That's about 12 cents an hour. I can afford that. And for the settings, you can change all these values. I'm going to use what I currently have selected, which is my JTRG resource group, the CFME virtual network with the default subnet. You can drill through these yourself and see how you can custom configure them. And with that done, we'll just click OK. We'll start creating this virtual machine. And you get a little message in the top there. If you see a bell, that's the status area. I'm going to go back to the virtual machines, and this will update automatically, but I'm just going to refresh it to speed things along here. And there we go, demo RHEL 7.2, and it's being created. And if we refresh this again, it'll transition to updating, which means it's been created. Now it's just changing state, and then finally to running. this is all time lapsed here. It takes about a minute or so for the smaller images. So let's go ahead and take this IP address and connect to the VM just to make sure it's running, that we can connect to it, and then we'll come back and do some additional configuration. So I have the IP address. You only get an IP address if it's running, so I'll make sure it's running. I changed pages. I can see the IP address on the background page there. I'll go ahead and save this out in case we want to come back in a minute. And open it. We'll add the key. It's not root. Don't use root here. So I created CFMEQE. And I created a valid password. Just going to type that in. And I'm not going to do anything in here. I'm just going to show you that I am connected. It's working. So we'll go ahead and just exit out of here. I'm going to type exit here and do it cleanly. So let's do some of the network configuration tasks here. Again, you want to click on the public IP address, and then over on the settings, there's a configuration. There's two settings I like to change on all of mine. First of all, the default timeout is 4 minutes. So after 4 minutes, it might look like it's locked up, but really it just timed you out. So set that to the max, 30 minutes. And then the other thing is I'm going to create a DNS address for this. Like I showed you on the CloudForms appliance, we use the DNS address so that we have a permanent address reference we can use other than the IP address. And we'll go back to PuTTY. This time I'm just going to enter the DNS instead of the IP address. You don't have a lot of say. The second part of the IP of the DNS is the location, and then it's cloudapp.azure.com. But you can set up all that stuff custom. Some things cost more money than others. So I'm logged back in, and we will just do one or two more things here, and then I'll just echo out the version string. And you can see it's Red Hat Enterprise Linux Server Release 7.2. So we are indeed running. So at this point you're pretty much running, and you can go in and start performing whatever server tasks you need to perform. I'm just going to give you a tour of where to find the objects that were created. If you'll recall from when we created this, I put it in this storage account. From storage account, the VHD images are contained in blobs. Files is for file sharing. And then it automatically goes into this VHD folder. And these are basically all the VHD images as well as the JSON files for creating the virtual machines. Here's the one I just created here. Defaults to 30 gigabyte, but you can expand those. And if you wanted to, you could just click the download button and save this image out and use it for future VMs. And let me give you a quick demo of the security groups. Security groups allows you to define specific access for this VM. So you can limit the IP addresses that can connect to it, the inbound and outbound ports, etc. So if this was a VM and you only wanted to be able to connect to it from your home IP address, you could configure that as well. And the SSH are built into the Linux images. If you wanted to add like access to a web server, for example, we can create an HTTP security rule, and then we could limit that. Oh, sorry, the destination's port 80. The source This is where you could make it anything or just a certain subnet. And then you can limit the protocols, etc. So we'll add a TCP here. So that's how you set up security rules. You can create a global security rule, or you can have one for each VM, or any combination. So the rest of those links you see on the left side, most of those towards the bottom are applicable. Again, there's the jobs drop down that looks like the bell. That's pretty much it from that point. Okay, so let's see what all this power management stuff looks like from inside ManageIQ. I have a recent appliance. I'm going to log into it. At the end of this video, I have a link on how to configure Azure Active Directory so you can set up a cloud provider. Right now I'm going to use one that already exists. This is my personal account here. Called Azure JT. As you can see, it has just a few items on it. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and click on the instances link. And there's the new VM. It's running demo RHEL 7.2, as well as a couple others we'll use in this demo. I'm going to go ahead and click on it and just show you the details here. It has the IP address. It does say RHEL 7.2 under the operating system, etc. So let's just go back to Azure real quick. We'll verify that we have 1 running and 3 stopped. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to just stop this VM. There's basically for Azure instances, there's stop and start, obviously, and there's also terminate. We'll go back into Azure, let's see, and you can see it's stopped. Some of this is time-lapse, of course, here. So I'll go ahead and just take a look at another image here. Let's go ahead and terminate this old one. We'll select terminate from the power menu and confirm that. And if we go back into Azure, you'll see that it is deleting, or it is deleted depending on the current state of the VM here. So as you can see, it's deleting, and also the demo RHEL 7.2 is stopped from our previous transaction. And then lastly, we'll just go ahead and run one of the start commands here. Running out of VMs, we'll use test rmvm. We'll go ahead and select start from the power menu. Confirm that. And if we just go back again to Azure, we'll just take a quick peek. And as you can see, the VM is currently starting. So that's RHEL on Azure, managed with ManageIQ. And thank you very much. Appreciate your time.